It's Matty Fresh on the track up estate. And I'm bringing to you live my boys Alec and Nate. Tequila Ty, Jay, Nelly, and Zillin in the building. So kick it back, pour the drink. We chillin' because I'm boozing and betting and ballin' like I'm 2-6 in the blue kicks. Watch me move quick. Yeah, this the blueprint. So who's getting involved? Welcome into the show. This is Booze, Bets, and Ball, baby.
And welcome back to Booze, Bets, and Ball, Penn State football podcast, brought to you by Big Banter Sports. And today we're going to go over our Peach Bowl preview, bringing it a little early, just get it out of the way before the holidays. But before we get into that, we do have to talk about the Penn State defensive coordinator change, because Manny Diaz takes the Duke head coaching job, and James Franklin kind of goes to what the philosophy he went to when he got Diaz, and he takes in a way, disgraced head coach as his new defensive coordinator in Tom Allen from Indiana. I don't think that was on anyone's radar for, no one brought his name up really that much. But here we are. It's Tom Allen. I know it's a little later in the coaching cycle, so you weren't going to really get a lot of your first picks, but get a former head coach late who got fired kind of late. So I don't know. The defenses at Indiana were not good the past couple of years. I think part of that was the fact that they weren't very talented, and the other part was their offense was really bad, which kept them on the field a lot. But some of the years prior, they were not too bad defensively, but clearly James Franklin thought this was the move.
Yeah, apparently. I agree with what you said regarding, this being late in the cycle. It's probably good, though. It's probably a good hire, though, from what people say. People who know far more about this than either of us do, in terms of him being a guy to fit the culture and a guy who is liked by his players and things like that. The on-field product the last several years, especially for the Indiana defense, has been pretty poor, like you said. So, that's not the best thing in the world, but also, they've played. They've given Penn State fits. They've played Ohio State close, things like this. And then maybe as the game wears on, they just don't have the depth or talent to hang with the good teams for 60 minutes. But in 2017, his first year, they were 10th in scoring defense in the conference. Then they were 10th again in 2018, 9th in 2019, 2020, the COVID year, they were really good. That's when they were, ranked in the top 10 for some period of time. And then 2021, they were 14th, and this year 13th. So, I don't know. It's a little bit of a head scratcher too, I guess. It's time will tell. But
yeah, I mean, Manny Diaz's defenses while he was the head coach at Miami weren't that good either. So it's hard to, I don't know. It's hard to know how much influence they have as head coach versus when they were a defensive coordinator. So. I guess time will tell on this one, but
I do agree with that. Let's see. So 2015, I think, is when he was at South Florida, right? So,
yeah. But another point I saw some people make while you look this up.
35th.
He might be at the point where maybe he's just content being a defensive coordinator for however much longer he wants to drag out his coaching career, and maybe James Franklin doesn't have to make another defensive coordinator hire as long as he's around. And, that eventually will make you lose guys like Anthony Poindexter, but, that's just the nature of the industry. So, you live with that kind of stuff. But if this is a guy he thinks is going to be around a while and be, I don't think anyone's going to be Manny Diaz again around here, but at least be, successful and give you a chance to win. I think, you'd be happy with that.
I do think there's something to be said for the stability that you could gain from that. I think that's a really good point. Yeah. They were 35th in 2015 when he was at South Florida as the defensive coordinator. So maybe that's where he will focus, and that's where he succeeds. Just like same thing to be said for Manny Diaz the last couple of years at Miami specifically. So we will see. Time will tell. But I don't know, not disappointed in it, I guess, right? Some people wanted Poindexter to be promoted. I thought that would have been okay. Yeah. Like you said, the big name guys, Elijah Robinson, gone to Syracuse already. So all this stuff happened a week too late. I wonder, like, how does that the Duke coaching search took as long as it did, but do you think that sours James Franklin on Manny Diaz at all? Just that he kind of got a little bit of the leftovers. I wonder how they handle that internally. It's just
I don't know. That's a tough one. I think it was on Duke's end dragging out
yeah.
because my brother's Duke basketball fan, and he reads like their message boards and their Twitter and all that. So like the football thing was being brought up, and kind of what he said was there was a lot of push from players for the interim guy, and I think maybe that was a holdup where they were trying to get the players maybe off of him or something like that. So I think that could play a role with it. The funny thing is the initial fan reaction from Duke on Manny Diaz was not really an encouraging one. They did not seem to like that. I do believe he's probably better off as a defense coordinator than a head coach, but we'll see. The AC's pretty weak now. I don't know. Like I don't think Florida State's in there much longer, and when that happens, Clemson will run too. So whatever happens to that conference, then I'm not sure. It might get demoted to like a group of 5 type conference. So maybe it's a little more winnable then. So we'll see. But
people complain about Penn State fans for having too high expectations about things.
Yeah,
but like, I mean, you're Duke, right? Like,
right.
Come on.
Yeah, I know. They should be pretty happy. They got probably a top 3 defense coordinator in the country to give them the time of day. Because I honestly didn't even think he would consider a job like that.
I do want him to be successful. I will root for him now, more so even than like Ricky Ronnie and Brent Pry and stuff. I just the impact that he had for the years that he was here was really substantial. And, all the best to him.
Franklin now, a lot of them former assistants are head coaches because what's his name just got the Troy head coaching job.
Yeah, Gerard Butler. Right?
Yeah, or no, Jared. Yeah, what's it? Parker.
Yeah, Gerard Butler is it?
And what Huff's still at Marshall. Yeah. Moorhead didn't get fired, right, at Akron?
No, as far as
so there's another one, and you have Ricky 28-point blown lead. Ronnie, that was quite the showing the other night. Yeah.
So out of those guys right now, who's the most successful? I guess it's kind of a mix.
Pry. I think it might be. Like maybe. They had a decent year. Like they came on strong at the end, and he's doing really well.
Yeah.
In recruiting now too, so he's gonna have them in position, I think, to win 8 or 9 games.
Marshall's in a bowl again, and then Notre Dame, right? So Huff did all right, but like he was also at Alabama in between,
right?
This too, so that's maybe he got a little extra boost from saving.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, I think that's a good sign though, because it's gonna attract really good assistants because they know then their next step is probably head coach somewhere else. So I think that does help Penn State down the line keep getting assistants of the caliber of Manny Diaz because these guys will see that it's pretty easy to become a head coach once you're a coordinator at a Penn State unless your name is Mike Yursich. But
2 years from now when
Bottlenecky
is like the head coach at Kansas or something like that, and Leopold Harris, that'll be we'll get to talk about it again.
Mm-hmm. We will. But all right, so that's enough of that. Let's get into this, and that is the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, which Penn State will be playing in on December 30th.
I know it's not your graphic, but
it's not. It's a very nice graphic. It's from the Penn State Athletics, so I could use that. That's they put it out
4, so that's gone. I saw it just yesterday. It was like 2.5. I don't know when you got that.
It's on ESPN as 4 today when I looked. So I got that this morning on the ESPN app. They had it at 4. I was surprised to see it at 4. Yeah, it's still at 4.
No, USA Today has 4.5 too. So it's
I don't, and we're gonna get into this. I don't understand why it's going up because if you look at the opt-out situation, it should be going the other way in the coordinator situation. But so Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia. Pretty sure Penn State's never played there. Yeah, they would have no reason to. I don't think so. Yeah. And it's a newer stadium, so I don't think they have. On ESPN, which weren't on ESPN at all this year, right? The new TV deal? Don't think so.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. No. So that's new. The noon kick kind of sucks. Give me like a 4 o'clock for this game, but whatever.
No bowl games unless they're in like an island should be at noon or or a baseball stadium.
Yeah, I know there's another one
should
after it. Yeah, I think the Fiesta Bowl's that night at like 5 or something. But still, I don't know. I'd prefer that to be a little later in the day. But oh well. Ole Miss 10-2, and kind of like Penn State, where their 2 losses were to teams you could make an argument were 2 of the top 4 teams in the country. Well, Ole Miss gets to say the same thing because they lost to Alabama and Georgia. So they, like Penn State, really, really, I guess just they say there's no such thing as a good loss, but the committee does consider good losses apparently. So they had 2 really good losses too. They beat Tulane at Tulane, and they beat LSU in a shootout. I think it was like 55-49, something like that. So they have a couple good wins, and these losses are respectable. If you're going to go 10-2 and your losses are to Alabama and Georgia, I think most people in the SEC would take that. Almost a straight 5 touchdowns per game. I'm surprised that's 20th. I thought that'd be a little higher, but a lot of yards. 455 yards per game, 22.3 points per game allowed. That doesn't even seem like a lot considering how much scoring there was in college, and that's 41st in the country, which there's a lot of good defenses in the country. If 22 a game is at the back half, the back half of the first third. So they do give up a decent amount of yards though. So over 370 a game. We're going to get into this a little more here about their offense because Jackson Dart, really good, almost 3,000 yards, high completion percentage, pretty good touchdown reception ratio, but it's their receivers that really stole the show this year. I know Judkins is a really good running back, but 4.4 average is respectable, but it's not
fair.
It's there. But man, this trio of receivers, Trey Harris, 47 catches, 851 yards, 8 touchdowns. Dayton Wade, 52 catches, 769 yards, 4 touchdowns. Jordan Watkins, 53, 71, 3. I mean, Penn State would have killed for any of these 3 guys this year, and Ole Miss had all 3. So I don't know what you think, but man, their passing offense. This is the best Penn State will see all year, right? I mean, Marvin Harrison, obviously, the best receiver Penn State will see it, but with McCord, Syracuse now, you know what I mean? Like, to me, this is the best offense overall Penn State's probably going to see this year.
Hold on. I got to keep talking for a minute. I want to look up something.
All right. I know. I'm just like, in terms of explosiveness, I think they're probably better than Ohio State and Michigan. Both those schools, I think, averaged more points per game than Ole Miss, but in terms of passing threats, I do think this will be the toughest challenge for Penn State this year. And as we're going to get into, Penn State is going to be pretty shorthanded on defense going into this game. So this is kind of where my number one concern is. I mean, they already averaged 276 passing yards a game, which is a lot. And I mean, Penn State, as we know, is one of the better passing defenses in the country this year. But between opt-outs, Manny Diaz, and I think this is a look Penn State has not seen. Obviously, Emeka Buka did not play when Penn State played Ohio State, so it was pretty much just the Marvin Harrison show. And Michigan didn't throw the ball a single time in the second half against Penn State, so we really didn't get tested by their passing offense either. So it really does feel like this is the first air attack we're really going to see this year, and it's the 13th game of the year.
I just wanted to look up to see if Trey Harris had more yards than the entire Penn State receiving core. So that's good because KLS 763 plus Harrison Wallace alone with 161. Oh, and Dante too. So the Penn State receivers broke 1,000 yards as a collective unit. But like you said, I think this is easily the best passing game that they have seen. Marvin Harrison had 162 yards against Penn State. The next best receiver was Cade Stover with 70 yards. And then after that, it was 3-1-1-1-1 for the rest of the receiving. So like Marvin Harrison did all the damage there. And that's when we had Kalen King following him around. So
yeah,
without him, without Johnny Dixon out, it's a little bit nerve-wracking to see. Now it's good in a way too, because if I guess Daquan Hardy, do we know if he's coming back or he's? I guess
I don't know if he's coming back yet, but the belief is he is playing in this game.
Okay, so you got him, right? You'll see how some of the younger guys play. Cam, what's his last name?
Miller.
Cam Miller, right? He'll have to step up and be somebody that's good. But then what do you got after that? I don't know.
You got a couple of like true freshmen, Elliot Washington, Tracy. I'm trying because they did not, in terms of meaningful playing time, they did not go down the depth chart at cornerback. It was Dixon, Hardy, King, and you saw a little bit Cam Miller in meaningful action. They did not get deep down there with that group, so there's not a lot of important game experience in that group right now outside of Hardy.
Yeah. So according to our lads, you have on the right side, King, Zion Tracy, and then nobody. On the left side, Johnny Dixon, Cam Miller, Elliot Washington, like you said, freshman, Nickelback, Daquan Hardy, and then Tyrese Mills. Tyrese.
Yeah, and I think King Mack was playing a little nickel too this year.
Okay, well that's good because everybody said he was going to be super duper star. So maybe he'll. I don't know if he's athletic enough to switch, but maybe we'll find out because they're. Maybe just play more zone. I don't know. What do? You play nickel and just zone and hope that the safeties kind of can keep you in it or something.
And the other problem is with Chop Robinson opting out, you can't say let's rely on our front four to get home as much and drop 6 or 7. So that complicates things a little bit too.
Yeah, that's the I don't know. That's the one area where Adiza Isaac's going to play.
Yeah,
you got DDS. You got some of Zariah Fisher was doing pretty well. You got Zane Durant. Like the pass rush, I think will still be. Maybe you put Abdul Carter and you let him rush a little bit more than he was before, right, or something like that. That's less of my concern. Obviously, honestly, the lack of secondary depth is really bad right now. Like,
it doesn't show up until you get into it, where you lose a couple guys, and honestly, they're lucky they stayed healthy back there this year, or might have been a little worse. But I just wanted to quickly go over how Penn State's defense kind of matches up here. So Penn State's defense allowed just 153 passing yards per game and just 69.7 rush yards per game, which is an average of 2.2 a carry. One thing I'll say about that is Penn State led the country in sacks with 48.
Yeah.
When you lead the country in sacks, as we know, that counts against the quarterback's rushing, which goes against the team rushing. So I think that number is a little, I guess, inflated, but it's technically deflated. But so I guess that plays into a little bit, but I do not expect Ole Miss to do too much passing, considering the Penn State secondary or too much rushing, considering the Penn State secondary situation in this game. So I think focusing a little more on what Dart and these receivers are going to do is a little more notable here.
Yeah, so they ran the ball 488 times, and like you said, that's including sacks. Let's see how many times they pass. Mississippi passed 353, so they were a pretty run-dominant team this year. That's give or take, 55, closer to 55, 60% running versus passing. So that's interesting. So maybe, I don't know, maybe this is a place where they have to make some adjustments that they're not quite ready for. Let's see, what was their completion percentage? 65%. Oh God, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's top 25 or so in the country, top 24. So yeah, and then yards per attempt also quite high. Like this is going to be a hell of a test. They were 6th in yards per attempt passing at 9.4. I don't want to look up what Penn State's was, but it's really that good.
Yeah.
And 276 yards per game passing. So this, yeah, I think you got it right. This is going to be a big test for these guys.
Yeah, definitely. So let's switch over, because if Penn State's going to win this game, I think they have to put up points, which for what we said about this defense all year, I feel crazy saying this, but the offense has to kind of carry the show here a little bit. So what about their defense? They had two really good ball hawk defensive backs. I think they're technically both listed at safety, but I think they moved guys around back there. But Trey Washington and John Saunders each had 3 interceptions this year, and Jared Ivey, kind of the big pass rusher, 9.5 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks. Turnovers, 16 throughout the season is pretty good. There were 34 sacks on the year, which isn't, it's not too bad. I think it was 16th in the nation, somewhere around there. 2.8 a game is pretty good. They didn't give up a ton of passing yards, like 220 in the SEC. I don't think is that bad, especially when you play like, LSU and Bama and all that. But 152 rush yards a game. I think Penn State's got to run the ball in this game, maybe chew some clock, keep that passing attack for Ole Miss off the field. I think this is where they're going to have to do it. They obviously ran the ball really well against Michigan State. I don't know how much of that was Michigan State, but of course, the last thought of this offense we have in our heads is when they looked the way we wish they looked all year against Michigan State. So, with Sider and Howe still calling the plays for this game, and they had pretty much a month to prepare, you'd think they have even a better plan in place. And, Aller and everyone else is a little more comfortable with this. And it doesn't look like we're going to have any opt-outs on this side of the ball. Olu Fashanu might be on a snap count, but for how good he is, he's not like, I think you could survive without him in this game. Ivy obviously 5.5 sacks, but it's not like he's going up against a Bosa or a JTT where you're worried about the guy totally wrecking the game. So I think you'd be okay with him on a limited snap count or whatever he decides to do. But I think this kind of comes down to the running backs having a big game, kind of like they had against Michigan State, and breaking some long runs and keeping Ole Miss off the field.
I agree 1,000% with that. So here we have Ole Miss, like you said, this is a place where, their offense is their strength. Our defense is our strength, or at least was throughout the year. God, it will continue. And then they're a little bit worse defensively. So they're, giving up 150 yards per game, rushing 3.9 yards a carry, which is about 45th nationally. You compare that to 2.2 for Penn State. So like not even the same world. And then pass defense, they're still, this is not going to be our strength this year, this game, but they were 220 yards a game and 7.1 yards per attempt, which is, not bad, not good, but it's not bad. So I think exactly like you said, this becomes whatever that game against Michigan State was, and hopefully they can manage to make some first downs, keep the clock going, hold the ball for 35, 38 minutes, and then keep the Ole Miss offense off the field. I think that is exactly the script that you would write up if you had to do it yourself.
Yes, Penn State ran for 186.7 yards a game, which was a 4.6 average on about 40 attempts a game.
They got up to 4.6 average? That's pretty good.
A lot of that had to be in that Michigan State game, because the average went way out. I have to go look at that. But that, if they stick with that kind of game plan, I think they're in a way better position in this game.
Oh my God, yeah. So listen, all right, 4.2, 5.3, 4.1, 3 something. Against UMass, they ran for 6.6 yards per attempt, and then they had a bunch of 1s and 2s and 4s, and then Michigan State was 7.3. So let's do that again.
39 attempts in that game for 283 and 2 touchdowns on the ground. I would definitely take that. I'd also take the 300 yards passing with 3 touchdowns and no turnovers. That was
literally everything. Like, just if you could repeat that, like that, I think they win. But if either of, if Aller is less, accurate, less reliable, or that run game gets shut down, I think Penn State has a very hard time winning this game because of the losses on defense and the lack of ability that I see with them being able to stop the Ole Miss offense.
Yeah, so let's just touch on this because we already talked about it. Penn State, Chop Robinson said he's out. Johnny Dixon did not come out and say he's out, but there was a report that came out from 247 that he's not playing. Kalen King, there was I think Audrey Snyder tweeted this last week when they had media availability at practice that both Dixon and King were missing. And then it came out that Dixon wasn't playing. So I don't know. Maybe King has not said anything, but I'm just putting him here with a question mark because it's clearly possible that he won't play. He has a brother on the team on the defense too. Maybe he wants to play with him one last time because his brother's coming back next year. He is not, a late day one, early day two pick like Kalen is. So, I could see maybe he plays, but clearly notable that he was missing when Dixon was missing and Dixon's not playing. It's just notable. So, we're still 10 days out, so a lot could change. But
I do like, though, too, when Caden Wallace and some of these guys who are declaring, they come out and they say, oh, I'm going to play in the bowl game and finish what I started. That seems to be like the mantra of the team right now. So, and like, I'm not going to blame Chop Robinson, and I wouldn't blame Olu if he didn't play too, right? Because they have too much to risk. But if your draft stock is not settled, and for Johnny Dixon, there's no way it is. And
no, it's not.
King had a little bit of a rough game against Ohio State. Like, you should want to, show out against a team like this and have that opportunity, unless you're afraid to, in which case then you do sit, right? But,
yeah. To me, if Olu Fashanu, I said this, if Olu Fashanu said he was sitting out after they lost to Michigan, I would have been fine with it because that guy had no business coming back anyway. So, I'd be okay with that. But, I'm not trying to start anything here, but both these guys that are sitting out are transfers.
Yeah.
So, you said like a lot of the guys finished what we started. Those were guys that came up through the, system.
That's true.
I don't know if I'm putting too much stock in that. I just think it's, a little notable that, the two guys you do have out already were transfers and didn't start here. But,
well, we'll see if Kalen plays or not, and that'll confirm or reject your hypothesis, I guess.
I guess so. Yeah, it will. But Ole Miss, their backup quarterback, Spencer Sanders, was ruled ineligible for this game for some reason. I was trying to read about it. I don't know if it had something to do with transfer rules or something. I think he's trying to transfer out because for some reason 3 starting quarterbacks transferred to Ole Miss this last year, and Dart won the job. It was Dart, Sanders, and then Walker Howard, who was the backup at LSU, transferred here. Now he's third string at Ole Miss. I'm not totally understanding what that situation was all about. But they also have 11 outgoing transfers. None of them big impact guys. Former Penn State commit Ashim Young among them, though. So that's a notable one. But it was a lot of backup receivers and that kind of stuff. So
notable also for Penn State, maybe, depending on what we think that's coming or not.
Yeah, that's true. But so that's all the info I have on that. So after all that, where are you at on a prediction for this game? Because I gotta be honest with you, the line surprises me a little bit, considering the just kind of Manny Diaz, Chop Robinson, Johnny Dixon, maybe Kalen King, like that. To me, that if they were playing a run first team, and I'm trying to think of an example and it's not coming to me, but if they're playing a run first team, I'd kind of be like, okay, whatever. But that's a lot to miss in your passing defense against a really good passing offense, which concerns me. But I will say that they've done a pretty good job as the favorite the past 3 years. I'm pretty sure the only loss they have is the 9 overtime game against Illinois. The last 3 years is the only time they've lost a game in which they've been favorited. So there's clearly something to that, considering all that went into that, debacle. So I give them credit there.
Just these whatchamacallit, these crossover conference games are just very hard to judge. The over-under is what I'm seeing now on Bleacher Nation, whatever the hell that is, 48.5. That seems really low.
That's
especially if we think that the Penn State offense can move the ball and the Penn State offense cannot stop Ole Miss. I would have this game well in, at least one team.
It's like a 27-21 type game there.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think the line is 4.5, well, they're thinking like 27-23, like somewhere around there. Yeah.
Which I think it'll be higher than that. Oh man. I don't know. I want them to win. You know,
I
Penn
know
State,
it's just
they're the first team to win all New Year's Six Bowls.
yep, that would be the case if they won this game. Yeah.
Interesting, but stupid, irrelevant stat. Um, let's say that they really get their shit together and Penn State wins 42-35. And it's like the most exciting bowl game since the Rose Bowl of 2017.
I could see this getting like that Cotton Bowl against Memphis a couple years ago. It's just a back and forth disaster where neither defense can do anything.
That's I think there's a much better chance of that happening than like nobody can score, right? And it's a 21-14 or 17-10 game or something like that. That there's 0% chance that happens.
Yeah, and it does seem like in bowl games, defenses do loosen up a little bit. Like those games do seem to be a little more on the high scoring side. I'm just thinking about the last couple times Penn State's been in New Year's Six games. What was it? We had 35-21 last year. The Fiesta Bowl was 35-28. Obviously we know the Rose Bowl before that was 52-49. Like seems like when we get in these, and the Cotton Bowl was 53-39, something like that. It just seems like every time Penn State's in a New Year's Six Bowl under Franklin, there's a lot of points being scored. So I do think the over definitely hits. I will say, if true, there's a lot to be said for these bowl practices. I mean, they pretty much had a month off. Andy Koltelnicki, the new offensive coordinator, I don't think is influencing play calling or the scheme or anything yet, but just having him in there, giving tips to the two co-OCs, giving tips to Aller on, some stuff. I think that definitely helps. I think he'll look a lot more comfortable. Obviously, I don't know about these receivers. I think a couple guys that these bold practices could really help at the receiver spot is Caden Saunders and Dante Cephas. Like, can he get the playbook down? Because we saw in the Maryland game, like the dude can make some really nice catches when he knows what the hell he's doing. And there's times like the Michigan game where you're wasting timeouts in the middle of quarters because he doesn't know a simple 4th and 2 or whatever the hell it was play call. Like
he's got another year potentially too. Is that?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, he does.
We want.
So,
I guess he. Okay, well, that's another. I don't know. Maybe that's but yeah. Yeah, maybe they simplify it so much. So whatever happened during Maryland, just do that and give them 3 end zone fades and he'll score 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, and I think Katron Allen, Nick Singleton both had their confidence up after
co-offensive MVPs, baby, for the team, which is
they're never picking until next year, because next year they won't care. Because either like they're going on the draft, or if one of them transfers, it's like whatever. We have Quinn and Martin, these other 8 guys in this room, which we talked about this. There's like freaking 75 scholarship running backs on this team next year. But you know what? I hate to pick against them because they are so good as a favorite. The ESPN matchup predictor is giving them like a 73% chance to win this game, actually. Which feels nuts. I don't think they respect Ole Miss, which
But see, okay, no, that's all that is, and I don't know, not to beat against ESPN. So that's the FPI, and the FPI likes So the FPI likes Penn State a lot. They like all the Big Ten teams. For whatever reason, the FPI doesn't like. So it's a spread, and like depending on what the spread that picks is, that's the percentage chance of winning. That's all it is. So it's higher than it should be.
Yeah, according to that, Penn State was the 3rd best team in the coury this year because they had Michigan and Ohio State 1 and 2. Which is, I guess they didn't see the offense play that much.
SP Plus also had Penn State winning, I think, fairly handily, which I was surprised about too.
Yeah, I don't know if they're just thinking Ole Miss is like weak in the trenches. I don't know too much about their, interiors on the offense and the defense. I know they're very talented, obviously, at skills on both sides of the ball, but I don't know if we were playing them next year when they had Walter Nolan coming in, it might be a different story.
The only we talked about this, but the only Ole Miss game that I really watched was the Georgia one, and it looked like they were not in the same division. Like Georgia absolutely annihilated them after it was like 7-7 or something, and then Ole Miss had a fake punt that went well, but then it was just it was a different story after that. So maybe they're not that good. I don't know. And Georgia's just a juggernaut, as we know that they often are. But
Yeah. I think I might take them 34-30.
okay.
Not totally confident in that. I just hate picking against them in bowl games when it's not. Yeah. If it was like a Georgia FSU situation where I
Yeah.
was a pissed off Georgia team and a Florida State team that wants no part of being there without their starting quarterback, like I'd be okay, my team is probably going to lose this game. But
Yo, you should go bet on Georgia. A Georgia over parlay at least. Get a couple more.
yeah, that might be a safe one. I do think the overhits, like I mentioned, Penn State or Franklin, pretty much gets the over. Outside of that, the Outback Bowl a couple years ago was really that was a struggle to watch. But yeah, I think they get it done, but I think it's ugly and it'll be fun to watch though, but it'll drive people crazy.
Can you just pick again? I thought you picked Ole Miss.
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay, sorry.
No, I said I can't pick it. I feel bad picking against them in a bowl game unless it was really obvious that they weren't going to win, which I don't think that's the case here.
Only if they played Michigan or Ohio State.
Yeah, then I can't. I'm done picking them when they play Ohio State. I'm never doing that again. No, that's enough of that. But
all right, so that's good. That's done. With what you know now, going into the year being over and stuff, what's your current level of optimism going into next year?
Well, I mentioned this. The last time Franklin had to change both coordinators and went off season, they won the Big Ten the next year. But like, I don't know, because the level of, and we talked about this when Tyler went on his rant and everything. The level of what you deem like a successful season changes so much next year because the Big Ten gets way more competitive, but the playoff also goes to 12.
Yeah.
So 10-2 should, with that schedule that Penn State has next year, I think 10-2 should get you in. You'd probably be 12 or 11, but I think it gets you in. Of course, that'll be the year they go 9-3 after going 10-2 1,000 times. But
I honestly, let's see who they get in the portal and things. With the turmoil as it is right now at Ohio State, and they have not gotten a transfer quarterback yet, and like
doesn't sound like they are going to.
Michigan's losing a lot of their starters. Oregon's going to be
really play Michigan though.
And us.
Yeah, we play UCLA, who I think is going to be a mess.
Yeah.
Washington, who loses a ton. I'm not sure there's a team. Maybe Michigan, but a team that loses as much impact players as Washington does. Right. Obviously, USC is going with Will Howard as their quarterback next year, and they've had a ton of guys enter the portal. So I don't know how they're going to be right away next year. I play Wisconsin. I don't know anything about Wisconsin, but it's at Wisconsin, so that's always a little scary. And they have to go like 2 at Purdue, and that's whatever you want to say about Purdue. That's a tough place to play at times. So
yeah, okay.
And at West Virginia, honestly, at the beginning of the year,
I think that the outcome of that game will show us a lot about how they're going to be. But looking again at our lads, like the defense, as long as nobody else leaves, they're going to be okay if they can get some of the secondary stuff figured out. Offensive line,
maybe need to bring in one guy.
Norzad can come back. Wormley can come back.
No, Norzad's done.
He's done? Okay.
Yeah, he's done.
Okay, so you got to replace 3 at least guys there, 3 or 4 guys there. But you have talent. And then the wide receivers. Those are kind of the big areas. I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. They're going to win. They're going to win the stupid Big Ten next year.
Yeah. Well, we'll worry about that when we get to that, obviously. But we'll be back, I guess, after the Peach Bowl sometime, win or lose, see what goes on in the game, see what's went on in the transfer portal. By the time this comes out, Penn State also have their 2024 recruiting class signed, which I feel like everyone's forgot about that. Honestly, it's not been on my mind.
Right? Like transfer portal matters more sooner.
Yeah, I mean, they had to change. They had to find 2 new coordinators, transfer portal, like that. And the thing is, like 24 of the 25 guys in the class were committed before the season even started.
Mhm.
Like that class was on the back burner for months now. Like it just they do all their and you know what? I think it's kind of smart they do. They do all their damage in recruiting in June and July and August. Season comes around. They don't worry about it. Then when signing day comes, they're already on the portal and everything else and not really putting
Yep.
any
Yeah.
time or, effort into high school recruiting because everyone's already locked in. I think that honestly is going to benefit them. So good, good on Franklin for doing that, I guess.
That dude seems to run a very solid ship, right? Like he is the right level of managing director, CEO, or whatever you want to call it. I think that's entirely correct. So.
Yeah, and I don't want to get into a whole rant here, but that's kind of been the thing where everyone's like, aren't you sick of Franklin? Yeah, because like they don't really show up against Ohio State and now Michigan, and some of his in-game stuff kind of sucks. But the stuff that they do the other 353 days of the year, honestly, is not that like run a lot better than most programs are. You know what I mean? Like they recruit well, they hire really good coordinators. Some of the guys they've hit on the transfer portal. I mean, Chop Robinson is going to be a first-round pick. Or Arnold Ebiketie was almost a first-round pick. Jordan Stout might be the best punter in the NFL pretty soon. Like the guys that they've brought in, the majority of them have actually been quite helpful.
Except for at one position, which was wide receiver.
Yeah.
Well, I guess even that Mitch Tinsley was decent last year.
Yeah, he was all right. I think that was an okay move.
But even like, the in-game thing or whatever, like I don't know that James Franklin did anything in the Michigan or Ohio State game that cost the team the games, right? Like the Michigan especially was horribly called offensively.
Mm-hmm.
And not doing that, right? Like that was Mike Yurcich. They admitted it as much that he went against what the game plan was, basically, I guess, right? And maybe that's like throwing him under the bus after he got fired and saying that, but it sure as hell looked like they didn't know what they were doing.
No.
No, but they also, people think that they knew that they were going to fire him before the game. So like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I don't really understand that, but I guess we'll see. We'll see if they. I hope they just stick to the game plan they had in this Michigan State game though, where it seemed like guys were put in positions where their strengths were used.
Yeah.
Like, Katron Allen was running in between tackles. Nick Singleton was nowhere near the tackles.
Yeah.
Amari Evans was brought in when Aller wanted to go 60 yards downfield. Like stuff made sense. You know what I mean? The tight ends were in the middle of the field. Like a lot of stuff made sense. So I just stick with that in this bowl game, and hopefully Kotelnicki kind of runs a ship similar to that heading in next year. I guess best way you could put it.
74 trick plays a game next year, from what I have seen. So perfect.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. All right, well, that's gonna do it for this one. Like I said, we will be back sometime in the new year to break down this game and probably Penn State's transfer portal additions. Still waiting on Julian Fleming, I guess. So see what goes on there, but we'll see you next time.